Assalamu alaikum. Hi everybody. In this class, as a continuation to the reading technique class, today I'm going to talk about in some detail about the specific techniques of IELTS. As you can see in front of you, we have the first type of the techniques, which is headings, and you can see here in the headings we have the numbers, which are Roman numbers, and all the numbers are written using these Roman numbers, and you don't have to change them. You are not allowed actually to change them in the exam. So if you transfer your answers to the answer sheet, it's a must. You have to use these Roman numbers. So number 1, then number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay, the next kind of questions is the true, false, not given. And of course, in the true, false, not given, we have facts. We are dealing with factual issues, factual statements in the passage. And we talk about percentages, numbers, years, and facts related to the topic or the main idea. So here actually we have true, false, not given, and I'm going to talk about that in detail. After that, we have other questions which are yes, no, not given, and the same techniques of the true, false, not given. We can use them with the yes, no, not given, but the yes, no, they are concerned with the opinion of the writer. So not only the facts like the true, false, not given, but actually we are dealing here with opinions. That means the writers actually, when they write, or the writers of the articles, they have their personal opinion. So we have these yes, no, or not given. So yes, completely with, no, against, and of course not given, no information or extra information. And this will be inshallah explained in detail. Now, the other part of questions, we have the multiple choices or multi-choices, and these multiple choice questions always come like this: A, B, C, D, and the questions come in order. I mean in order when we have question 27, for example, in paragraph B, for example, and then question 28 should be in paragraph C. So then 29 in D. If it is not in paragraph D, it is in paragraph E. So all the questions come and go in order from the beginning to the end. And this again, as I said, we'll explain in detail when we deal with them. The next part or the next type of questions is the summary. And I'm going to talk about two types of the summary. We have something called passage summary and paragraph summary. And again, we have some techniques related to this. And of course, as I said, we are going to talk about them in detail. Okay, and finally, or the final technique, which is matching. So the matching here we have, for example, as you can see, we have question 18, 19, 20, and 21. And we have list of people. And for the list of people here, we have, so as you can see here, number 1, we have Edmund Halley, then Johnson, Kepler, then C, then D. All these people here, they come in order, and we'll talk about that, how to match, we say, the views, or how to match the passages with the names and the technique of that. So in general, then we have 5 types, or there are 5 types of reading questions, which are the headings, and true, false, not given, multiple choices, summary, and matching. All IELTS exams have these 5, and they make actually the IELTS exam, and I'm going to talk about each one of them in more detail. and I'll be even happier if you share with me your ideas concerning these techniques. And remember, everything by practice can be achieved. So it's not just to understand the technique. The technique is not really difficult, but you have to practice. Now, to start with, the first technique today is the headings. Headings mean that we have paragraphs in IELTS, and each paragraph has got a main idea. How to know the main idea, or how to catch the main idea. If you remember in the class before this one here, or the class before the introduction into reading, I said every single paragraph in IELTS has got main idea, then development of the main idea, then examples or views. The heading technique, or the headings, they focus on actually the main ideas, not the examples given, but I have to catch the main idea. A very good technique, or a very useful technique, I advise you to read the first two sentences from the beginning of the paragraph. So we start from here. An incident. So of course this paragraph talks about air traffic control in the USA. So if I say an incident that occurred in the skies over the Grand Canyon in 1956 resulted in the establishment of the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, to regulate and oversee the operation of aircraft in the skies over the United States. So sentence 1, this is the end here. The sentence which were becoming quiet, congested. So actually we finish in here. Because this is a small paragraph, this is not a big paragraph, so the meaning is clear. An accident that occurred in the skies over the Grand Canyon in 1956 resulted in the establishment of the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, to regulate and oversee the operation of aircraft in the skies over the United States, which were becoming quiet, congested. The idea here, when you do reading the headings, you have to read slowly. You have to. It's a must. If you read fast, you lose time and you can't catch the main idea. In this way here, the headings in front of you, we have, as you can see, paragraph A talks about, talks about an incident that occurred in the skies over the Grand Canyon. So, what is the main idea in here? When we go to the list of headings, we have what is a technique, I call it to answer by exclusion. الإجابة بالاستبعاد. For example, if after finishing reading the first sentence and the second sentence, and here I just finished just the first sentence, which is more than enough, I go and read actually the headings. So if I say disobeying FAA regulations, so here we have no relationship between the number 1 and the paragraph in A. An accident that occurred in the skies over the Grand Canyon in 1956 resulted in the establishment of the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, to regulate and oversee the operation of aircraft that in the skies over the United States, which were becoming quite congested. So number 1, actually, here, in number 1 is not correct. So number 1 is a wrong answer. So here, number 1 is out of record. So I delete number 1. Aviation disaster prompts action. Let's say maybe. I say, let us say maybe. Maybe means there is an option to have it. Then let's go to number 3. 2 coincidental developments, nothing about developments. Setting altitude zones, nothing about zones or altitudes. An oversimplified view, nothing about simplification or views. Controlling pilots' licenses, and nothing about licenses or pilots. Number 7, defining airspace categories, nothing about categories or airspace. Setting rules to weather conditions, nothing about weather conditions. Taking off safely, nothing about safety here. First steps towards ATC, we don't have anything about ATC, we have here FAA. So the correct answer is number 2. Number 2 is the correct answer. Aviation disaster prompts action. This is called answering by, we say, exclusion. So I exclude actually the answers. Why this technique is good? Because sometimes you don't even know the meaning. But from the other headings, you can see there is no match with the question, so you delete. Then you have aviation disaster prompts action, and he says accident in here, so we have something, skies over the Grand Canyon, so this is talks about a disaster or an accident, so you can say a full match. Of course, in the question, then we have a question, we say 14. I'm following the order of the statements. Rudimentary air traffic control ATC existed well before the Grand Canyon disaster. So sentence 1, we read sentence 2 to make sure. As early as the 1920s, the earliest air traffic controllers manually guided aircraft in the vicinity of the airports using lights and flags, while beacons and flashing lights were placed along cross-country routes to establish the earliest airways. So again here, rudimentary air traffic control existed, ATC, well before the Grand Canyon disaster. So if I want, that's the main idea here, it's about the air traffic control, ATC, existed before the Grand Canyon. Then I go to the list of headings again, and I start again excluding, deleting the wrong answers. So if I go to number 1, disobeying FAA regulations, so nothing here about the regulations. Aviation disaster prompts action, of course this went to paragraph A. 2, coincidental developments, nothing about developments. Setting altitude zones, nothing about the zones. Oversimplified view, number 5, nothing about oversimplified view. Controlling pilots' licenses, nothing about pilots or licenses. Defining airspace categories, nothing about categories or defining airspace, anything related to airspace. Number 8, setting rules to weather conditions, nothing about the weather or its conditions. Taking off safely, again, nothing is about taking off safely. First steps towards ATC, yes, that's the correct answer because the keyword is ATC here. If you do this technique regularly, you will gain speed. That means you will be faster. So every time you do this technique, read the first 2 sentences, go to the headings and start excluding, deleting the wrong answers, keep the right answers, and in this way you can control most of the answers. Now, if you go to paragraph C, in the 1940s, ATC centers could and did take advantage of the newly developed radar and improved radio communication brought about by the Second World War. So in the 1940s, I read the first sentence, and again, ATC centers could and did take advantage of the newly developed radar and improved radio communication brought up by the Second World War. But the system remained rudimentary. So here we have the two sentences. Talks about 1940s, World War II, radar improved, or the ATC was improved by the newly advantages by the radar and the radio. So again, if I go and I look at the answers, again, so the same, we say the same technique in here. I use the same issue again. I start choosing and collecting the answers by excluding the wrong answer. Disobeying, nothing about disobedient. Aviation, of course, that went for paragraph A. So again, I'm not using this. So two coincidental developments, let's say maybe, because he talks about developments, he talks about maybe radar, and let's check the rest. Setting altitudes, nothing about altitudes. Oversimplified view, no views. Controlling pilots, nothing about controlling. Defining airspace, nothing about categories. Setting rules, weather condition, it doesn't talk about the weather. Taking off safely, nothing about safety in here. And finally, first steps, and we have already done this for paragraph B, so this done is for B. So it is two coincidental developments. What are these two? It's the invention of the radio, the radar, and the radio. So two coincidental because of the Second World War, of course. So in this way, I do it. I never read beyond the two sentences, because if you do that, you will touch the examples, and in this way you'll be confused, and you might choose the wrong answer from the list. So as you have seen here, paragraphs A, B, C, we finish them. I'm going to finish the rest of the examples in here. In paragraph D, if you look at paragraph D, it says here, many people think that ATC consists of a row of controllers using in front of their radar screens at the nation's airports, telling arriving and departing traffic what to do. Many people think that ATC consists of a row of controllers sitting in front of their radar screens at the nation's airports, telling arriving and departing traffic what to do. This is a very incomplete part of the picture. So after I finished the main two sentences, I will match. So many people think, it's about what do people think. We go and match which paragraph or which heading matches this. So what do people think? It's the employees or the workers sit in a row in front of screens, the controllers, and control the airport. And he said this is a very incomplete part of the picture. So he's going, or he's saying something against this view. So it's about the view of people in complete picture, and we should see which one matches the choices in the list. So again, we go to number one as usual, and in this way again you do disobeying FAA, nothing about disobedient. Aviation disaster, we have already taken this as part of the answer. Too coincidental, we take it as a part. Setting altitudes, no way. and an oversimplified view. This is your answer. It is about oversimplified view because he said many people think that ATC consists of a row of controllers sitting in front of their radar screens, and then he said this is a very incomplete part of the picture. Controlling pilots, nothing about pilots. Defining airspace, nothing about defining airspace. Setting rules, nothing about rules. Taking off safely, nothing about safety. And of course, first steps towards ATC, that was already taken in paragraph B. Now, finally, paragraph E, we do again the same technique. Again, what do? Actually, you read the two sentences, the first sentences, then you match or try to match with the headings. Number E is, to meet this challenge, the following elements were put into effect. First, ATC extends over virtually the entire United States. In general, from 365 meters above the ground and higher, the entire country is blanketed by controlled airspace. In certain areas, mainly near airports, controlled airspace extends down to 215 meters. If you can see here, to meet this challenge, what challenge here? He's talking, of course, this challenge that goes to paragraph D. So in paragraph D talks about the challenge of controlling the FAA or the airspace, American airspace. To meet this challenge, the following elements were put into effect. What elements? The first, ATC extended over virtually the entire United States in general. Then he gives examples about heights, meters, 365 meters above the ground and higher. Then we have the entire country is blanketed by controlled airspace in certain areas, mainly near airports. Controlled airspace extends down to 215 meters. So I can see 365, 250 meters. So he's talking about, we say, altitudes in here or heights. So which heading talks about this? Again, if you go to the list of headings, again, we do the same game again. You see disobeying, nothing about disobedient. Aviation disaster, no. Too coincidental, no. Setting altitude zones, because we have heights in here, so this is the correct answer in here. Setting altitude zones. Oversimplified view we have already taken. Controlling pilots, nothing about pilots or licenses. Defining airspace categories, nothing about airspace and nothing about categories. And then setting rules, weather, nothing about the weather. Taking off safely, nothing about safety. And first steps we have already chosen number 10. Now, again, as you can see here, we repeat the same thing again and again and again and again. By this, you have speed. Now, let's go to the next paragraph, paragraph F. FAA then recognized two types of operating environments. In good meteorological conditions, flying would be permitted under virtual flight rules. Of course, avoid these VFR whatever, because these words confuse you. So when you read, try to skip these issues. The FAA then recognized two types of operating environments. That's sentence 1. In good meteorological conditions, flying would be permitted under virtual flight rules, which suggest a strong reliance on visual cues to maintain an acceptable level of safety. So he talks about meteorological conditions and visual something cues to maintain acceptable level of safety. So then he talks about poor visibility, the next third sentence. So he said good conditions, we have visual, and he talks about visual and meteorological, that means the weather. So we go to the list of headings again. Disobeying, again, nothing about disobedient, nothing about disobeying, or so nothing about A. Number one, aviation disaster, we have already taken two. Two, coincidental, we have already taken three. Setting altitude zones, we have already taken this. Oversimplified, we say taken this oversimplified. Controlling pilots, nothing about this. And defining airspace categories, we have, let's say, no, nothing about this. Then we have setting rules to weather conditions. This is the only heading that talks about the weather conditions, because he said meteorological, if you see, recognized two types of operating environments. So number one, environment in good meteorological conditions, that means in good weather conditions. So that's the only one. Taking off safely and first steps, again, nothing here and nothing in here. This is the issue. Okay, finally, the last paragraph in G. Controlled airspace is divided into several different types designated by the letters of the alphabet. So controlled airspace is divided into several different types designated by letters of the alphabet. Uncontrolled airspace is designated class F, while controlled airspace below 5,490 meters above sea level and not in the vicinity of the airport is a class E. So he's talking about controlled airspace and uncontrolled airspace. So, and he gives letters F, whatever, C, E, yes. So if the keyword is controlled airspace and uncontrolled airspace. So the keyword actually is the word airspace. If I go to the headings again, if I follow the technique of the headings again, I can find that this one, number 7, I didn't tick it. So you can just do the same technique again, disobeying of FAA regulations, aviation disaster to coincidental developments. So if you go through all of them very, very fast, because you, as I said, by the technique or by doing the technique, you gain speed. So you can choose for sure number 7, defining airspace categories. And he talks about airspace, controlled airspace or uncontrolled airspace and uncontrolled airspace, and he gives them names of classes: class F, class E, class A. So here we have, then the right answer is defining airspace categories. I hope that this explanation about concerning headings can help you in this series of IELTS with Shaiban, and I'm trying to do my best actually to that everything in this series can help you significantly. And remember, without practicing, we cannot, or you cannot, develop your techniques.